What's up, everybody? Big night on the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. We've got a special guest coming up in just a little bit. We've got some, yes, believe it or not, some Jesse Bates, more Jesse Bates stuff to talk about. There's some jersey talk and a remember when on the horizon. So we've got a lot of things to get to. Exciting though, John, because you can tell us who the special guest is this evening. We've got a good one.
Yeah, a lot of things for what is normally the deadest part of the offseason.
Yeah.
Like, this is why they have the Emmys every year, or like not the ESPYs, I should say.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening in sports. But our guest tonight is the second round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals this past draft, the highest player that they've ever traded up for, I believe, at least in recent memory. One Cam Taylor-Britt, cornerback out of Nebraska. He's going to be joining us here in a couple minutes. We're going to get to some news and topics first, but pretty excited for this interview.
Yeah, pretty excited, and we, we're grateful for his time and just excited about all of it. There's a lot of fun things, and this was one of the things that we've been cooking up for a little while and got to finally make it work. So we're going to be hearing from him in just a little bit here. Before we do, we just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know, like John said, it's a little bit of the doldrums in terms of the off season and whatnot, but we will, we're going to keep trying to get you all kinds of cool stuff and do some cool things throughout the summer, have some more guests, and, hopefully have some fun along the way. That's what it's all about. But again, we're appreciative to Cam Taylor-Britt and his representation for giving us some time. Before we get there, John, I can't even believe it. Here we are. We're still, we're like a full year into the Jesse Bates thing, right? And there is some news going on with Jesse Bates, and I guess non-news. There was a report from Kelsey Conway, I believe, of the Cincinnati Enquirer. He put out kind of a cryptic social media message. So I don't know. Lay it on us. What's the latest and greatest with Jesse Bates? And can we finally start closing the book on this? I mean, it's just good God.
Right. I mean, the book will be closed this time on Friday when that deadline passes. Yeah. The deadline being they have until 4 p.m. Eastern on Friday to reach a multi-year deal. After that, he is not eligible to sign any sort of contract other than the franchise tender, which in all likelihood he will eventually sign, but he probably won't come this week. And there could be some type of a holdout in training camp and preseason that follows that. But yeah, they basically have 2 more days to put together some deal, but we've heard nothing of the sort in terms of progress. And like you said, the report from Cincinnati.com's Kelsey Conway reporting that basically the status quo remains. Bates and the Bengals are far apart. Again, there's not been anything that would have probably brought them closer together other than the fact that in some cases deadline spurs action. In this case, not so much.
So I mean, again, I feel like we've asked this question a ton of times over and over again, but is this something we should feel surprised about, not surprised about? It sounds like even with this kind of, hey, let's burn the midnight oil and trying to squeeze this thing and get something done before the deadline, it just sounds like it's not happening. Surprised, not surprised, even as more and more time goes on. Because, as this deadline approaches, John, that both sides try and play the leverage game. Then they get a little, they get a little more aggressive. They get a little bit more eager to potentially get something done. Maybe they get a little more flexible. So I guess now that we're nearing that deadline, I mean, and we're hearing this sort of thing, are you surprised at all by that? I pretty much am not personally.
No.
But, yeah.
No. The more time that passed, the more the market for the top tier safeties has increased. And I feel like in the cases where you have players who were tagged, but then they reach an agreement, like it's not as common as players who get tagged and then just play on the tag. But for players who end up signing extensions, I feel like in those cases, they aren't terribly far apart when they're tagged, and there's like a mutual agreement that there's a ballpark where they can find like a compromise. With this one, though, I mean, like you said, it's been a year, and it never has felt like they were ever really close in terms of an average annual value and a guaranteed money value part of it. And I feel like as the AAV has risen, thanks to guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, that has only kind of furthered the gap, because I don't think that they were ever really close when it came to the signing bonus and that actually guaranteeing base salaries and putting money in escrow and everything. And we knew that that's never really been their type of thing. So, I mean, we've said this so many times, though, like Jesse Bates embodies everything that the Bengals want to value and want to retain and develop and all that stuff, but he is that caliber of player that will command a mega deal that unfortunately they just don't sign. They just don't offer really. Like guys like Sam Hubbard, Joe Mixon, like they sign big deals in terms of total money, but you look at the actual guarantee parts of those contracts and it's not very much. It's not a lot compared to the other top players at those positions. Jesse Bates, and we can call out his reputation, or not call out, but we can include his representation in this. They like to go for the guaranteed money. They like to truly reset the market when it comes to the actual meat and bones, the money that they care about. And that's just the caliber player that he is. We all know it. He's that talented. He's an all-pro for a reason. And unfortunately, the Bengals, they just don't really play in that field.
I will say this, John. I've kind of hesitated a little bit in terms of maybe relaying this, but one of our listeners who has some connections and has provided us with connections with some former Bengals and whatnot, and one who has been on this show, and we'll have to maybe get him back on here to see if we can kind of corroborate this and whatnot. But Tim McGee, I think I have heard that he maybe thinks that the Bengals are going to get some sort of deal done here as the weekends. That's at least what I was maybe told here this week by one of our listeners. I don't know how accurate that is, and I haven't heard that directly from Tim myself. But I don't make of that what you will, I guess. But I don't. Tim works obviously with the team and does some post game analysis and whatnot. But I still don't. Not to distrust anything there. I don't know how this thing's going to get done based on how it's all played out, despite what people may think or may say.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, I would assume knows more than me because he has an ear in the actual building. He works with the team in some way, shape, or form. So I trust that he has heard something to that matter. And I don't blame the Bengals for being optimistic in that sense because they normally bat pretty highly when it comes to retaining some of their top players. And, sometimes like the deadline kind of creeps up on them. It's done so in terms of running up to the regular season when you're talking about guys who are extending off their rookie contract, not necessarily off the franchise tag. But unfortunately, like this has kind of been a trend for the Bengals. They typically don't extend players after they give them the tag. And I think we'd liked to have thought that this was kind of an exception because they've been trying to get this deal done for over a year now. Maybe the tag was kind of that last resort to kind of give them more time. But unless they're willing to offer a deal that none of us are really expecting them to offer, I don't know. It kind of seems more likely than not that Bates is going to be on the tag this year.
Yeah, so that's kind of the latest and greatest. We'll see exactly what happens with it, but I think for now, and as this week comes to a close, and likely the inactivity that we're all kind of expecting, despite what some others may think about the situation, I think we can maybe start closing the book on that and kind of understanding that this is going to be a 1-year situation, at least for the time being, until something else happens here. But that Bengals secondary with him in it is a lot better. And now they've added to it. They've got a lot of other players and brought back players, Eli Apple, and then of course, Dax Hill, and the gentleman who we'll be talking to in just a little bit here, Cam Taylor-Britt coming to the Bengals. They're going to, they've added a lot to it. So there's a lot of talent there for at least right now, despite what's going on with Jesse Bates and his contract situation. Well, the other piece of news before we get to the interview with Cam Taylor-Britt, the other piece of news that's kind of been floating out there with the Cincinnati Bengals and whatnot. And I don't know if there's, we were going to maybe have a state your case on this, but I don't really know how staunch or whatever we feel about any of the potential options here. But the Bengals have some alternate uniforms that they're going to unveil, and I think it coincides with the Ring of Honor candidates and all these kinds of things. There's a lot of speculation out there, John. There was a picture that I think has gone viral about black helmets on these racks, these black helmets with orange stripes type of thing. There is the talk of matching the whole white tiger outfit here, and we've got a little image that I think has been shown. I'll share that with everybody here, and this is kind of the one that I think more people may be clamoring for this one, and or they think that this is maybe the option here. And this is, kind of thrown around on different social media platforms. It's been shared so much, it's hard to know who to specifically give credit to on that. I think it might be Dalton, but I don't know. So at any rate, I don't want to discredit anybody, but that's one that's been kind of floating out there a little bit. So that's one design. I don't know what you think about that, but is that the one that you're leaning towards, whether it's your preference or one that you think that is going to be the one that they'll unveil?
Right. So this is still the NFL, the no fun league. So even though we got some, we got some progress there in terms of adding a secondary helmet, there are still some bylaws, I guess, in terms of what they can and can't do. So what's important to note here is that like an alternate helmet can be worn with an alternate uniform. So the Bengals alternate uniform is technically like the orange one. The Texans just revealed they have like a red helmet, and they're going to wear that with their red jersey. So they can't wear that helmet more than like maybe once or twice a year. They have to wear it with whatever they designate to be like their alternate uniforms. Now, I think you can technically have multiple alternate uniforms. And the reason why I think the one we're seeing on the screen, the white base with the black stripes, the reason why I think that is ultimately going to be it. One, I think it's the clear fan favorite, the one that most fans want to see. But also, I think it was interesting that last year, the only time the Bengals wore the white jersey, white pants with black stripes, and white socks was the game that you and I were actually at, Anthony. It was against the Minnesota Vikings week 1. Every other time they wore the white jerseys, they wore either black pants with white socks or the white and black pants with the black socks. So my thought is if they're going to go with this helmet, they can only wear it like once or twice a year. I think they're already setting up the fact that the original color rush, the all white combination with the white pants, shirt, and socks, I think they're setting that up to be an alternate, which would logistically make sense for this to happen. Because again, the other helmets are, you have like the retro one with the Bengals text on it. They could unveil retro uniforms and wear that once a year. That's a possibility. I think a lot of fans are clamoring for the black helmet with the orange stripes. But again, you would have to wear that with whatever you would designate your alternate uniform to be. And because the Bengals' primary uniform is the black jersey, I don't think that they would wear that black helmet with like the orange jersey. I think they would want to keep the orange on orange there. So in my mind, like this makes the most sense. This is probably what we can expect. They would obviously get free, brownie points from all the fans because they love this look. But also I think that would be their move to make the complete all white uniform combination at least one of their alternates, and they can wear that once or maybe twice a year.
So I've been getting a little bit of mixed emotions. I would say the more public ones I've been getting have been supportive, but there's been a couple, when I shared this option on Twitter, there are some that do not like this option. And this, of course, the great Ken Anderson pictured there in the old school, I think our buddy Bengal Jim, who, by the way, had an amazing program, not because I actually showed up on it, but Zach Taylor was on it. Amazing show Sunday night. And of course, now he and his pals are part of our Cincy Jungle podcast channel, and they'll be doing Sunday night shows and then in-season Tuesday night shows. They've got a lot of cool things coming up. So if you haven't checked that out yet on the podcast channel and or their YouTube channel, you got to go do that. Regardless, I think Bengal Jim, our buddy there, calls that the pumpkin head, that old helmet there with the lettering, the old school. Now, the problem that I think a lot of, and this was by design, folks. Paul Brown specifically designed this uniform to stick it to his old employer. The problem that I think a lot of Bengals fans and maybe more, current Bengals fans, not long-time ones, have with this is the similarity to the Cleveland Browns look. So I don't know what you feel about this. I think it's just kind of cool. I think I know a bit about Bengals history, and I had some people on Twitter kind of remind me about something. The Bengals actually did wear this once in 1994. It was the 75th anniversary year. Klingler and company wore these on, I think it was week 3 against the Patriots. So someone pointed that out to me on Twitter, which was kind of cool. But other than that, they have not gone back to this uniform combination. I don't know what you think about this. We're partial to Ken Anderson because he's been kind to us on this show. So I kind of would like to see this as kind of the alternate thing. You've seen the Steelers honeybee thing. You've seen the grotesque Packers ones. What is that, like brown and blue, or I can't remember what that, or maybe that's the old Jets one. I can't even remember. Some of them are kind of crazy, but
a lot of browns, like a lot of brown colors in like
uniforms,
not ideal. But I feel sorry for the people who associate this uniform with Dave Klingler.
Yeah, I know. You can't do that. There's no way. Yeah.
Because I mean that's possible. Like you may not, like I wasn't old enough to see this uniform live, and maybe people who were diehard Bengals fans in the '90s remember the game that Klingler wore in '94. But to me, I remember Elizabeth Blackburn told us when they were unveiling the uniforms that her grandfather Mike, like he's still very partial to like this getup, like the black jersey and the white pants, because obviously he grew up with it. That was the uniform that his dad picked out. So that's why that combo remains like the team's primary uniform. That's why they wore it in the Super Bowl. That's just what they've always been doing for the past 55 years or whatever. So like it would make sense that this could be a new look. Like I think it would look sharp with like a Nike type of like redo. I think it would look pretty sleek. It's simple. The thing with like the Browns resemblance to me is that every time I see a picture of these uniforms, they don't look like they're completely black jerseys. They almost look like they got some type of a brown tint. And maybe that's just because they're old pictures. Like I never saw them with my own eyes. So I would love to see what they would look like in like in a modern sense with my own eyes, because I think they would look pretty clean.
Yeah, and I know Ken, we've kind of briefly touched on it when Ken's been on the show, and he really likes that pumpkin head. I think if you support the Ken Anderson Alliance, there's maybe a cool dual helmet thing you can get where it's like one side's the stripes and one side's the old school Bengal one. I remember him kind of talking about that. We'll have to check that out. But I just, just from the tradition standpoint, I kind of jokingly was like, hey, he being Paul Brown came up with this concept as a jab to his former employer there. So it's kind of like, why not make this, why not wear it on the home game where you host the Browns? It may be too much, it may be too alike, it may be too, but it's kind of like, really go back to the Battle of Ohio and go to this look. I don't know. I'm kind of partial to this. I like the white tiger concept that we just talked about. I'm partial to this just because, especially now, like you mentioned, Elizabeth Blackburn and the family is kind of talking about traditions and doing different things. And then of course, now, they're doing the Ring of Honor. I just feel like this maybe kind of goes in line with some of that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like if the Browns were still the original Browns, they were owned by like the Medell family, that would sting a little bit more. But yeah. Also, I think it's funny too, because the Bengals social media definitely caught on to a lot of people hyping this up. I think like on 3 separate occasions, they teased people with like their Twitter account.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
It's like announcement coming.
Right.
Ring of Honors next week, or like big news partnership with Bedford Sports.
Right.
So, like, we can assume that something good's coming.
Yeah. So we'll see. There's one other alternative here, and I don't know if this is the best picture of it. I'll try and bring this up for you here for everybody but the only other alternative that I can maybe see, and I don't know if they would go this route. Here's what I think, John. I think it may go that whatever they do here may coincide with some of the Ring of Honor candidates that are going in this year, and some of the most likely based on their Pro Bowls, their achievements with the team, etc. I would think, there's many worthy players on there, but some of them that come top of mind that we've talked about: Corey Dillon, Willie Anderson, Chad Johnson, right? So what would you think about this one being a possibility going to, let me see if I can pull this up here. Might be a little blurry here, but this is, that's old Brian Simmons there.
Yeah.
I should have pulled up Takeo Spikes, but the tiger on the shoulder, the numbers on the upper shoulder pads, you got the striping that kind of goes back to the 80s a little bit. The stripe, it's that pre-2004 uniform concept where they got real funky with stuff. These ones kind of went through, I think like Champion made one of this style. I think Puma did. And then I can't remember if it was Wilson or what have you. Went through a couple of different companies, but any possibility, any realm of reality wherein you think that this is something that they would do?
I think so. I know that they still have the tiger head, that asset and logo, like it's still like their property and they still use it from time to time. I don't know about like the full blown tiger. I feel like we haven't seen that on like any official team merchandise or advertisements. So maybe they would replace the leaping tiger with just the tiger head, but it wouldn't look the same. Like this jersey's iconic. I feel like very rarely do you have uniforms that are beloved by every football fan. And I don't know if I've ever run into a fan talking about this jersey or this uniform combo that didn't like it. Like this is universally loved. And I think in the near future, they should definitely bring this back 100%.
Yeah, it's a cool one. It's a cool concept. I don't know that they'll do it, but how does, I don't know. I don't, it just be, there's a couple of different options here that just seem to be kind of cool. And like I said, I know our buddy Mike had sent me a text about the black helmets. We've seen that image, I think, floating around on Twitter with the orange stripes. Not sure if that's going to be part of it, like you said, but I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, the black helmet with the orange stripes works because like their black jersey just has the orange stripes, so it's consistent like the orange helmet and the orange jersey is. And again, like that could be a possibility. Maybe they make the all black like a new alternate, but I don't know. I feel like there's too much momentum ever since the color rush jerseys came out in 2016. There's been just nonstop clamoring about an extra helmet, the white helmet, to complete the look because everyone loves the color rush, even with the orange helmet. But everyone knows they could just look that much better with a full white and black helmet.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to the main event here in just a second. We're gonna chat with Cam Taylor-Britt, Bengals 2022 second round pick. Before we do, just want to remind folks that you can get this stuff that we have on the YouTube channel from the Orange and Black Insider. You can subscribe by clicking the icon beneath that SB Nation logo, that Cincy Jungle logo there on the bottom right hand side of your screen. Subscribe, click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available, all of that. And we're going to be pumping out different stuff. We did unveil a new thing called Bengal Biographies. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, please do. We'll be embedding that, I think, on some Cincy Jungle posts too. So if you haven't had a chance yet to check that out, please do. We're going to be bringing you more interviews and whatnot. And of course, now, as I mentioned, Bengal Jim and friends talking football, joining the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, along with Matt Minnick's Coach Speak and Chalk Talk in our show, trying to give you stuff all throughout the week, a lot of different stuff and a lot of different interviews, appearances, all that kind of stuff. But you got to go subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you got to go subscribe to the Cincy Jungle podcast channel as well through your favorite streamer, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all of the major ones. We are there. So you gotta go do that.
Let's get to Cam.
All right. Okay, so as teased, and we're very excited about it, Cam Taylor-Britt, the Bengals' second-round pick in 2022, is joining us on Orange and Black Insider and CincyJungle.com. Cam, great to have you with us. And I know you're busy. You got your autograph hand going busy today, but thanks for joining us, man. What's going on?
Man, nothing much down here in Atlanta. Training right now until we go back. We leave the 23rd. We need to be report back up there, but just getting it in until that time comes.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about a lot, and I guess we'll kind of go a little bit in chronological order, if you will, in terms of kind of your journey to the NFL, your journey to the Bengals, and whatnot. And of course, Cam is joining us thanks to Sports Trust Advisors, the great people there, hooking us up and linking us with Cam Taylor-Britt here. Just let's talk a little bit, if you can, Cam, about your draft preparation and leading up to the draft. Obviously a lot of workouts, a lot of different things, but what was just that entire process like for you, kind of going from that college to pro transition? And then of course, what was kind of the first inklings you got that the Bengals were heavily interested in you in that pre-draft process?
Okay, yeah. Well, it kind of just started out in Dallas, where I was training at Exos under Brent Callaway, working on my speed training and everything down there. He's a great coach, so I wanted to get under him. I've seen the guys that he had before, and just were blazing fast, and that's what I needed. At the time, I wasn't too much worried about the athletic part. It was more that long speed and just getting out there and showing the coaches that I can run. And I believe I did that. I had the opportunity to showcase that at the combine, but also just during practices at the Reese's Senior Bowl, where, we had the opportunity to be in front of numerous of coaches and scouts and, just everybody, even the fans there. And it was a great opportunity. But leading up to the draft, it was just honestly just chills, just because We did have a great visit when I was on my top 30 with the Bengals. Me and Coach Birch just had the realest conversation that, I've had with a coach besides my coach at Nebraska, Coach Fisher. And that, I kind of needed that. And when I heard my name called, just got the call anyway from Coach Taylor, it was like a dream. And I told my friends that I wouldn't switch any positions with them as far as the places they got drafted, because I'm happy where I'm at.
For sure, man. Like, I think a lot of players who are kind of young into the league, like their second and third years, they always look back at the rookie season as just the nonstop year, because you go straight from college to training for the draft and then mini camp, and now it's kind of like your only downtime right before the season. How have you kind of managed that? Have you like talked to people about how to manage this nonstop year that you have going on?
Man, most definitely. I talk to, the older guys all the time on the team, and they just let me know that, everybody went through it. And you have to understand that you're not the only person that has to, have extra meetings just because you're a rookie. You start from the bottom of the totem pole again. You're not in college anymore, and you have to, expect that and respect it at that, because that's how the game goes.
Talking with Cam Taylor-Britt, Bengals 2022 second-round pick, joining us thanks to Sports Trust Advisors. We're stoked to be talking with him a little bit of his draft process, his short time so far with the Bengals, and what's ahead for him. I asked you a little bit about, the lead up to the draft and preparing and all of that. Obviously, you talked about your speed and you weren't really worried about where you were in terms of athleticism and stuff. But I mean, are there some specific things when you're working out where you're saying, hey, we're doing these specific drills just because it's the combine and these things are looked at so diligently by teams at this specific event and your pro day as well? Maybe talk a little bit about that. And if you would, what kind of weird questions were you at? I always like to hear, were you asked any weird questions? You don't have to say the team if it was the Bengals or whoever else.
That'd be preferable, though.
Yeah, if you want to, you can. But I mean, I'm always curious, just kind of that process and just some of the odd questions maybe that players get asked during that process.
Man, questions were kind of crazy, you can say. They did ask a lot. They asked about, your parents and things. They asked about someone that, you're friends with in 2006. I was like, I was 6 years old. How do you know about me? So it was just some of those questions that you wouldn't expect from somebody that you just met that knows your whole life story, and that's how it kind of goes. You're in those informal meetings and formal meetings, and they have everything they need to know about you. They just want to see if you're going to tell the truth.
So I got a quote from you from an Athletic article that was about a year ago. You said, quote, about leaving or staying in Nebraska for your senior year. I didn't have a season worthy of leaving. I've got a chip on my shoulder right now, and I would say this chip is that I didn't play to my ability. I know people may say that I played well, but I feel like I've got a lot more in me. What was the thought process of coming back to Nebraska, and where would you say that you're most improved now compared to where you were last year going into your final season?
Must have just been the most comfortable I've been, playing football. It started off sophomore year, just getting thrown in the fire. And then junior year came up, and I was, still trying to get the hang of it, but it wasn't like my best. And I knew that for a fact, and to leave early and enter the draft that year wasn't going to be the best decision for me. I feel like I would have made it, but it wouldn't have been in the second round, and I had the opportunity to be, drafted then, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like, what were your impressions about, if you had any impressions about the Bengals before this past season? Did you follow like their run to the Super Bowl, and like how did that kind of change once you like saw them go into the playoffs and then entering the draft process?
Yeah, I feel just like kind of everybody was onto those guys, just watching you just because the guys they do have on the field and they're playmakers. I go against them every day, and they're playmakers for sure. But just seeing those guys, fight through the season. I didn't get a chance to, watch every game, but the games that I did watch, I was like, man, everybody watched playoff football, NFL football, and I was tuned into that, just making sure, because I had to see what teams, I had the opportunity, to be here, but I just didn't know where I would end up. So I was just, watching those guys.
Talking with Cam Taylor-Britt, Bengals 2022 draft pick. Happy to be chatting with him, hopefully for a couple more minutes. If you're cool on time, Cam, I want to be considerate of that. That kind of segues nicely into another question I had for you as we kind of look ahead to now. You are a Bengal. We've talked about the draft and all that. You are a Bengal. You've done some workouts with him, signed the contract, the whole deal. Training camp is around the corner. So I assume, my question is, what has you kind of most excited about the team and you being on it? I think I don't want to answer my own question for you, but I would think that one of the elements has to be the fact that you're going to a team that just made the Super Bowl among many others. And we'd probably like to hear about what's got you jazzed up about going into training camp.
Most definitely that, and just the guys in the locker room. A lot of people don't get to see, the way that they act, and they, of course, everybody we put on the athletic role when we're outside of, the locker room. But when we're in the locker room, they're being themselves, and everybody doesn't get to see that. And I'm so grateful that I'm in this, this light right here with those guys, because it's not the team to I guess down the rookies or do anything. They really help us out in any way possible. And that goes for the offensive guys helping defensive guys, and defensive guys helping offensive guys. Even the special teams guys like step in, and say what they need to say, just so that we know everybody is on our side. So that's how it kind of goes, with us.
Yeah, so you had rookie minicamp a couple months ago. You guys drafted a lot of speed, including you. You got a lot of speed in that backfield now.
Yep.
Do you guys have a race between you and Dax and Tyson Anderson?
We talked about that. We're gonna set it up, here.
All right.
We're gonna make something happen for you.
Yeah, we had that. One of our listeners actually asked that when we promoted the fact that you're going to be appearing on that. So that was a good question from Greg there that we had to ask. Yeah, I mean,
that's great.
Do you remember years ago? I mean, I don't know how closely you paid attention to the Bengals years ago, but do you remember when Chad Ochocinco raced the racehorse? Remember that whole deal?
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you got that in your future, but maybe
Ochocinco's been viral a lot, so most definitely I saw it.
Going into training camp and everything, what do you think? What's been kind of expressed to you from the coaches, Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo, Coach Burks, et cetera? I mean, what's been expressed to you in terms of immediate role, future role? There's a lot of depth, a lot of former high picks in that secondary that are hanging out in that, in those position groups there. So what have they kind of expressed to you in terms of opportunity, immediate role, future role, and how are you kind of approaching that?
I'm approaching it, you feel me, like every day is a new day. You have to come in and work, and I kind of want to get that in my head early, because a lot of rookies, they don't come in focused. So I want to go in and ask every question possible, just because we do have those older guys in the room that will help out anytime. We have Eli, Cheeto, Von Bell, Jesse Bates. I can go on, and that's a backfield right there. As far as starting, rolling anything, yes, boundary corner where I'll be rotating, or anything, but there's no, honest say right now, because the season isn't here. But going through training camp, they've been saying, everything full speed. It doesn't matter, you mess up, we'll fix it right now, but don't continue to mess up on the same thing. You're in the NFL for a reason, and there aren't too many hiccups, because you mess it up, there's a touchdown, especially on the back end. And just technique-wise, that's one thing that we do focus on. We don't do a lot, what the other teams do, it's really kind of cool and calm, where they really want us to work on our technique, make sure the talking across the field is great and not loud. Everybody's getting it. It's just not thrown at us right now. It's really kind of making sure that we get it, before they move on to something else.
So are you just gonna be IDing Stanley Morgan wherever he's on the water, or he's on the field? You're just gonna line up against him
every time. Yeah. Most definitely.
Did you get more wins and losses in minicamp? Like, did you keep track of that?
I didn't, but I didn't lose a lot.
Sounds like you did.
Yeah. He's got a little score sheet. You can tell. Come on now.
A little bit. Nah.
What do you think you're working on the most in terms of honing skills and whatnot going into training camp? What's kind of the thing? I mean, obviously you're a very talented guy. You got a lot of athleticism, and the future is very, very bright for you. But I mean, everybody's got to work on something, right? So what do you think you're kind of specifically working on as you get going into training camp?
Just transitioning out of my break fast as possible. I've always kind of just said that just because I feel like there should be no false steps in that break, and even just being so fluid. I want to be very smooth in my back pedal and even just getting out of my breaks, so I can come back downhill fast as possible before the receiver gets out. Also, I had LASIK eye surgery, so high pointing the ball, making sure that I'm actually using these beautiful eyes I have now. Uh, Man, because it was kind of tough, but what else? And as far as like besides the field stuff, this playbook, you have to get it down pat. And I try to talk to my teammates all the time, get little hints and stuff like, how would you look at this right here? And they'll tell me how they played it, what helps him, and what didn't help him. So, I asked some of the guys, about that stuff as well.
Just last question for me, Cam. Do you have any like specific like stat goals or just like any playing time goals or like most looking forward to accomplishing as a rookie?
Honestly, just being the best teammate that I can be for this team. I want to come in and contribute to anything that possible that can help this team win. And I'm not just saying, starting corner or starting safety, anything. With special teams, if I can make an impact there and, help this team in the biggest way possible, I'm going to do it. I kind of said this at Nebraska, and I wanted to, continue doing that because that's who I am, and I don't want to be that guy who doesn't want to play special teams.
Last one from me, Cam, and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate your time. It just kind of a fun one. I mean, we talked about Ocho racing the horse, and we know about AJ Green, and we found out that he likes to juggle and he's very good at. Well, what's something that the fans don't know? I didn't know about the LASIK thing. Not that that's a fun thing or a hobby or anything, but like, what's like something about you that fans should know about you in terms of like, hey, this is a passion of mine. This is something I do outside of football, or just some other things.
I don't know. Oh, well, my brother kind of helped me. He said 2K. One thing I do, outside of football, I like to chill a lot. So, yes, get on the game, and I'm on the game for hours. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth, it's a long time. Like, I look up, I'm like, oh, I got to go to bed. Like, it's getting reckless because we'll be on a 15-game streak. And it's, when you're winning like that in other games for guys, it's just really fun. So that's probably about it, though.
All right. Well, we won't divulge for privacy's sake. We won't divulge your gamer tag or anything like that.
We good. We good. Only if they good, but we can't be losing all night.
Well, Cam, this has been an absolute pleasure. I know you're super busy, and we appreciate you carving out the time. No blowing smoke here. You can roll back the tape. And I don't want to upset other draft picks in the class, but you were my personal favorite that the Bengals selected in terms of value, skill set, need, everything kind of coming together. So this one's personally special to me for you coming on our show and talking with us. So we wish you the best of luck ahead, man. I know good things are ahead. So thanks for coming on.
Man, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cam.
All right. It's Cam Taylor-Britt joining us on the Orange Black Insider. Fun times talking about him. Biggest takeaways here, John. First of all, my favorite question that was asked was the Stanley Morgan stuff that you asked about. That was my personal favorite. And the one thing I found the most interesting, the LASIK thing. I did not know about that. That wasn't really talked about, I don't think, with a lot of different things. At least not that I noticed.
Well, it didn't get the pub that Jameis Winston's operation did because the whole throwing 30 interceptions. Oh, now I can see clearly, but it can't hurt. I mean, playing with contacts. I've never worn contacts, thankfully, so I can't imagine it's tremendously easy from time to time. You could probably lose some, so I would hope that it makes. I would hope it makes things a lot smoother for him. But yeah, I mean, he's only been through one rookie minicamp, and it really is kind of a grind for these guys. Like, he went from Nebraska, he probably graduated right into NFL draft prep, and it's just a gnarly process all the way to April. And then right from the draft, you go into camp, and then you're at camp for a month. And, he's got to take advantage of this time right now in Atlanta training because the grind's not going to stop for him.
Yeah. And hey, thanks to his representation over at Sports Trust Advisors. We've been working on this for a while, and they have been very communicative. And even when we were like, hey, can he come on at this point? And they were not yet, but we'll definitely work with you guys. And true to their word, they worked with us and carved out some availability. And thank you to Cam too, because he's signing all kinds of stuff right now and took some time out to talk with us. So we definitely appreciate that. So Jarius, Jamie, and Julia over at Sports Trust Advisors, thanks so much for helping us set that up. The J crew there, setting it up for us. We appreciate that. And man, that's really, really just nice, down to earth, good, seemingly good guy, and I think you can tell when the Bengals talk about character and when they have these sit downs with people, and you can see the interactions like that, where it's not forced nice. It's just a real, genuine, authentic guy that's nice and likes football and just is doing his thing,
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's a lot of cliches about guys who are, great character guys, or guys who want to do the most in terms of always participating, always, putting yourself out there. But I feel like he kind of stays true to that. I hope that Baker Mayfield's not listening, because, he got in trouble for playing a bunch of video games during the week that he was supposed to start. So Cam, just watch what you say about that. I know Joe Mixon is on 2K and Madden a lot. Maybe you'll get some games in with him, but yeah, I'm just looking out for you.
Temper it down with preseason and training camp around. Maybe dial it down a little bit. But no, a great guy. When we're stoked to have had an opportunity to talk. He gave us 20 minutes. It's awesome. So I don't know if you saw in that video, John, there was a specific jersey hanging out, the interview there, that the jersey that was behind him. Did you happen to notice that? There was one.
It was Keith Brooking I saw. Was another
one? One. Did you see the other one that was right behind him? It was
a 40
Garrison Hurst.
Yeah, yes.
Hurst. It was Garrison Hurst. And Garrison Hurst was one of the guys we did a Remember When on. Was that last week or the week prior? I can't remember. The time is flying by and days are blending together. Regardless, Garrison Hurst was a Remember When. We've got another Remember When. And guess what, John? It centers around a Bengals running back for a time. And look, the Bengals have, even in their dry periods, we know that they have had high profile and high producing running backs. And, you can go back to Pete Johnson and, all the way before him, we had Charles Alexander, a guy who was an integral piece to get them to the Super Bowl in the early 80s. And we had him on the show, great guy. And then obviously James Brooks, one of the best to do it. And you've got Corey Dillon. We've talked about him, Rudy Johnson, all of these guys and even when they swung for the fences there, sometimes it didn't work. Kenny Irons in the second round, Kajana Carter, obviously. Injuries derailed both of those guys. But now, again, Joe Mixon, they know how to draft running backs. They know how to draft wide receivers, and they know how to draft running backs. That is for sure. So there's a guy, John, in an era between both of those guys. I'm gonna show you a picture of this guy, and I'm curious to know if you're gonna recognize this guy or not. And this was a guy that was in between a different period of time for the team. And this number 20, wore that 28, wore it before Dylan did. And he was a guy that not a lot of people talk about in terms of Bengal history, Bengals running backs, all of that, because he's wedged in between James Brooks and Kajana Carter, Corey Dillon. And he played for the team for a handful of years and was pretty productive. This is Harold Green, a running back that played for them and was a guy that was on, unfortunately, a lot of those lousy teams in the early and mid-90s. David Klingler was his quarterback throughout much of the time, I think through 92 through 94, 95. He did have the tail end of Jeff Blake before he left the team. Did have Boomer in the 92 season, but that was about it. And Harold Green, a lot of people don't know this. Harold Green, John, was a Pro Bowler with the Bengals. And this
in the 90s?
In the 90s, Harold Green was a Pro Bowl player with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I will show you exactly what I mean here. Here is his career stats. Just a guy, again, that nobody talks about. This, of course, is courtesy of Pro Football Reference. You look at it here. Here's the Pro Bowl campaign in 92. The team was pretty awful. Look at the year, 1,170 yards, only had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Did have 41 catches that year as well, 214 yards, but a guy that just was a do-it-all back for them, almost 1,400 yards from scrimmage, two touchdowns, only one fumble away there, made the Pro Bowl, and was a guy that was valuable to this team during a very dry spell. You can see there he was with the team for 6 years and then finished off with the Rams and the Falcons respectively at the end there. Didn't do much, obviously they tried as we get down to these years he's gone, but they ended up splitting carries. There's guys in here, Derek Fenner and others that kind of worked with him, but had that nice season with the Bengals. And you see early on, they labeled him as a fullback early, but over 4 yards per carry, limited carries a little bit, had a nice year in 91. And then that big year with 4.4 yards per carry for the Cincinnati Bengals there. So a guy that was pretty productive, and one, John, that actually, I'm going to share one more graphic with you. You think of the big names. I mentioned a bunch of them. Let's go once again to Pro Football Reference. Here are the top rushing leaders in Bengals history, and look who's number 7. Behind the guys that got a boatload of carries, all of that. Look at the yardage leaders at 37-27, split time a lot with the team. But this is where I think a lot of people don't think about him because he just didn't get into the end zone often, right? The others definitely deep into double digits. You look at Pete Johnson, the touchdown machine, Corey Dillon up there. James Brooks was in the end zone all the time, whether it was catching the ball or running the ball. But here he is. He's above Gio Bernard, 7th on the Bengals all-time rushing list. So Harold Green, remember when Harold Green played for the Bengals and made a Pro Bowl?
Of course I don't remember, because who watches the Bengals in the 90s? Like, hold on a second. This dude was a fullback for 2 years. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry.
He was big.
Because he didn't get the ball very much because he was a fullback for some reason. Then they list him as a running back, and he makes a Pro Bowl under Dave Shula. That should count as like 4 Pro Bowls. Of course, he didn't score a lot. The Bengals didn't score touchdowns in the 90s. That's crazy.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a great point. Just in general, he didn't get in the end zone because they didn't get in the end zone. Yeah, that's a hell of a.
It'd be weird if he had 10 touchdowns in the year and they still only won like 4 games.
But he was mixing-esque in size, 6'2", 220 plus. And a guy that just did a lot of things for the team, and was a guy who caught passes again out of South Carolina, was drafted in 1990 and overshadowed a lot because of who was in the league at that time. But, again, just a guy that not a lot of people talk about, but he was actually pretty decent in terms of the team and all-time records and everything. So, you're right. Getting that Pro Bowl nod under David Shula, that in itself is a thing.
It's a monumental achievement. Holy crap. I am curious, why the drop in terms of yards per carry was so stark. Now, obviously, I don't imagine his offensive lines were very good, but that drop from 4.4 to 2.7. It's kind of interesting because I feel like they gave him a similar amount of workload and it just didn't really click. And then he kind of slowly built his way back up until he became a St. Louis Ram, and still 9 years in the league for running back at any point in time in football history is pretty impressive. So my hat is tipped to him for sure.
Yep, Harold Green. Go look him up. Not a guy that he gets talked about. Doesn't get a lot of pub from the team itself, but a guy who was productive for the team. Remember when Harold Green was a running back for the Bengals for 6 seasons and made a Pro Bowl with him in his 3rd one. So Harold Green, if you're out there somewhere, reach out to us. I think he was doing some coaching and different stuff too now. Past
we would love all the 90s Bengals stories.
My God, yeah, please come on. We'd love to hear that. Hey, so let's drop the mic and get out of here. We're going a tiny bit shorter than we usually do, but we had some fun talking with Cam Taylor-Britt just a little bit ago. We have some people. Where's Cam? Well, you join late if you're asking now. You got to go rewind or rewatch the entire show. We had about 20 minutes or so with him, which was awesome. And so anyway, let's drop the mic and get out of here, John.
Yes, thanks to Jared Collins for correcting Pro Football Reference. Apparently, Green was never a fullback, so bad marks to PFR.
Well, yeah.
Whatever.
He wasn't like a blocking fullback. I think he was more just kind of their power back. I don't know why they labeled him fullback.
Fullbacks were different back then. They were used more. So
maybe it was like that. Yeah.
Sure. I forgot last week, shame on me, to give a shout out to my mom. It was her was her birthday this past Thursday. So happy belated birthday to my mom, and happy early birthday to my dad, whose birthday is a week from now as of this recording. So a lot of July birthdays here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, there's a lot of July birthdays. I know I've got some family members as well that have July birthdays and all that kind of stuff. So at any rate, yeah, happy birthday to the Sheerans, Mr. and Mrs. Sheeran. Happy birthday from me to you. So yeah, at any rate, we're working on some other stuff. Can't really divulge too much about it yet, but we've got some other interviews and other things that we're hopefully trying to get going. And then we're going to try and maybe do something creative like we did last year with the unveiling of the inaugural class of the Ring of Honor. We're going to maybe try and do something. I don't know. We'll try and do something, whether it's appearances, charity rally, whatever it may be. We're going to try and do that again. So we appreciate your support. Raised thousands of dollars, plural, last year for a few great charities. So maybe we'll be trying to do something like that again and have some appearances, prizes, all that good stuff. And we hope we can count on all of you as well for your support. But John, thank you for what you do for the show. And thank you to Cam Taylor-Britt and the Sports Trust Advisor crew there that gave us some time with him.
Yeah, don't thank me. You're the one who brought Taylor-Britt on here. You're the one attracting all these live listeners. And shout out to Dalton for that amazing graphic he made promoting the show out of nowhere. Like, Dalton, you've got to have better things to do in your life than promote this show. But shout out to him. And also, because it wasn't a part of the interview recording, like right before we pressed record, I don't think Taylor-Britt knew that we could hear him. But he commented on the screen that you can see and the background and everything.
He did.
He's like, that's pretty cool. We kind of overheard him. We started laughing. But I mean, Dalton, Cam Taylor-Britt likes your style because Dalton did design our whole aesthetic.
Yeah, and if you need graphic design work, go see the guy Dalton for sure at Dalton Signature. We're gonna get out of here, ladies and gents, and we are so happy that you have joined us. And we can't thank you enough for the support of the program. We will talk to you soon, bring you all kinds of different stuff, like I said. So keep it to Cincy Jungle for your news, opinions, analysis, and podcasts. Our YouTube channels, go subscribe at the little icon below that SB Nation icon there. Click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. And, of course, go subscribe to the Cincy Jungle podcast channel now, having Bengal Jim and Friends talking football on the channel as well as our show, and Matt Minnick's Coach Speak and Chalk Talk, all part of that there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Have a good week, John.
You too, man.